Hey, Talia here, and today on I Got Back Up, I'm joined by Luke Young. Confronted with the lightning speed advances of the online world, Luke struggled to even carry a mobile phone. From gross misuse to having all devices locked away, Luke's journey is a battle for survival in the modern world. How technology and social media plays a huge impact in our everyday lives. So, Luke, when you hear the phrase I got back up, what do you think and feel?
I When I first saw the phrase, I thought it was backup as in someone's coming to help me, which is probably a misinterpretation. I think you meant that I am getting back up from the fall or the bottom. And when I realized that, I thought, oh, maybe there is a double meaning, maybe there isn't. But how that makes me feel, um, I think that it reminds me of when I felt most separate from the world, when I first stopped using online devices or anything with a screen. Um, it reminded me of the longest time of my life where I really felt time unlike any other, even when I'm writing. Um, so that journey, which I realized that I got back up actually encompasses that sort of emotional reality between the beginning and now. Um, that makes me feel like okay, like I remember a lot of the pain. I remember a lot of the setbacks, a lot of the construction, reconstruction, basically a reconfiguring of the self and identity. And I had to do that while remaining offline and try and find a happier place without going back to a place I only associate with bad things, um, which has had its challenges even to this day, 7 years later, 8 years later. Um, but it's yeah, it tells a human story that it's not a linear curve, and you really are preparing yourself for the next challenge, any kind of challenge, um, by trying to live your life and trying to do things and trying to be. And yeah, that's what I was feeling when I heard your phrase. Really, yeah, it's lovely.
Thank you. I really liked when you said the reconstruction of the self, because that's kind of in its own way sort of what it is when you're going through something and you're healing, you're recovering. It is the reconstruction of this. I don't think I've actually ever heard someone use the phrase reconstruction, but it literally is. It's the rebirth.
Yeah, I was just thinking of like an existential element where well, in my particular case, like my whole identity growing up as a teen in the 2010s was, um, it was all strung together by online activity and online profiles and how I connected with my peers that way. It was the way to be, and it was fresh and exciting. But um, I wrongly believed that I was the only one struggling with it because it was a kind of like unspoken reality when it was that quick, where I hadn't had time to reflect in my young and mature mind what damage it was really doing until, well, there was no return. Um, yeah, so I had to sort of, yeah, reconstruct a new person that wouldn't forget the past, but would definitely try to resist the worst parts of it from happening again. And yeah, it's definitely a big juggle between not being anxious and paranoid about it coming back and still trying to do things and push yourself, but also not falling into destructive patterns or getting complacent and thinking I'm doing really well now, so I'm gonna go back to the thing that destroyed me. Um, so this is where with social media and online life, the drug analogy falls quite neatly into it, even if it's a very different kind of substance. Um, I Yeah, I always find it interesting when going through the therapy side of I was sort of hearing like adjustments being made from um, it being sort of yeah addiction or obsession to more of an allergy, and juggling about these ideas intellectually was really helpful for me um, because I didn't understand a lot of what I was going through.
Yeah, no, of course. And I think there's so many different aspects of it as well. And then obviously there's so many different things that have happened since. And obviously we will talk about that as well. But I want in your own words then, because obviously we've started to touch upon what it is, and kind of what you had gone through. And social media, it's one of those things where people love to hate it, hate to love it. They love it, they hate it, they hate it, they love it. I mean, I don't genuinely think a single person on this planet has a 100% healthy relationship with it. Even if they say they do, I just
That's
do.
fair.
That's my opinion. Other
Yeah,
people might say differently, but I genuinely do not think you could maybe 99, but no, I don't believe anyone that is on it has an 100%, is 100% okay being on it. Um, but anyway, so in your own words, I want you to take us back to where you think kind of most resonates with everything that you went through and your story. And then, yeah, we'll go from there.
yeah. So I was quite late in my sort of peer group to use social media. It was Facebook before Instagram that was kind of the primary account, as you probably remember, and um, I got it when I was 13, which was actually the legal age of having it. But a lot of people just sort of got it when they were in year 6 and 11 years old, and they'd say they're born in the 90s. It was, yeah, it was very easy to access and very easy to see interactions going on there and posts, which meant it was kind of a bit of a spectator sport at times. It kind of really felt like, as a young guy going through hormonal changes and stuff, there was a lot of sort of testosterone fueled engagements going on there. It was like it was kind of like a very a cyber zoo of just emotions and people sharing stuff and people trying to like mock each other. It just bred anxiety from the very beginning. And my like personal take among school was that I was trying to keep up with everyone. I was trying to get involved in all this cool thing, and this sense of membership was taking over my mind. And that, coupled with like online gaming, was like the perfect platform for my sort of angst-ridden self to find a satisfaction that would be momentary but not sustainable. And that kind of distraction and preoccupation made me lose track of things that are very important to ourselves, like the people who care and love us, and the little things, going out and going to green spaces and doing things that you yourself enjoy. All of that just got belittled by this online realm where it just felt like everything was available. And eventually, years down the line, before totally abstaining, if you like, I did try and cut down. I was quite honest to myself right before going to visit some friends who I hadn't seen in a couple of years. I met them on holiday, and I was thinking, I'm not really myself, so I kind of need to sort myself out before I see them. And that's where like my abstainment became more manifest, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'm not having a good time here. I really need to make some changes. But as I tried to make those changes, my acquaintances at the time noticed, and it was like, why aren't you looking at the chat? Why aren't you online? And so it just became a massive identity crisis that was going on over years, and trying to have that balance between staying connected and actually feeling all right. And eventually that led to not only dropping off social media and everything, but literally disappearing from the perspective of anyone who knew me, and not telling anyone because I didn't really know how to articulate what I was going through. It was just very internal, very in my mind, which is why the kind of emotional reality really slows life down to a very painful process where you are suddenly alien, and yeah, your self collapse. And my only sort of consolement at the time was some part-time work which I already had, and taking long walks along the Sussex coastline. That was the only path I really knew where to sort of use my time and do something, and avoid public places where I was likely to bump into people.
It was obviously coupled with, when you're a teenager, correct? At the time, or
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So this was when I was when I was 18. Yeah, that was like the worst time of life. When you're 18, you're supposed to be, oh wow, I can go out, I can go to a bar and do all these new exciting things. That was the worst time of my life, and it's very peculiar.
I don't think it is peculiar because I think it's actually a sense of, you hear, well, there you go. It's a lot of people you hear say it should be the best time of your life and you should be going out and you should be going, whatever it is, you should. But take away all the shoulds and it's actually 18, 19, 20. Those are the years, not even those are the years, it can happen at any years, but these years as well are the times when, you're not at school anymore, maybe you're going to uni, some are going to jobs, some didn't do A levels. There's so many different paths that people are on, and you're starting to figure yourself out that little bit more because you're kind of a teen, late teens, early adult now, and you're actually starting to figure yourself out. So I actually don't think it is peculiar when you said it is, because I think it can actually be one of the hardest times, or it can be the beginning of some of the hardest times for some people because you're starting to learn who you are, the people around you, what you want to do, who you want to be, and maybe the person you once were isn't who you want to be now. It can actually be a really difficult time. So when you couple that in with social media and the pressures of the world and social media, and yeah, friends going, why didn't you text me back? Or why haven't I heard from you? Or why this, why that, why this, why that? Coupled again with looking at social media, and everyone does it, even to this point, whatever social media platform it is, even to this day, you open up the app and whatever gender you are, whoever you are, you will look at something sometimes and you'll compare yourself. Even if you're having a great day, you can still compare yourself. And it's the comparative element as well. So it's like a whole mixture of different things that people put into the pot here. And when you're 18 or, early 20s and you're starting to figure yourself out, it can be, I mean, a lot, even it is an understatement. It's too much. It's way too much. And I think,
Yeah, I mean, I wish I had the foresight at the time, or the sort of adult maturity to really see it that way, and to look past the shoulds that are put on you and the pressures and expectations. Yeah, like it's honestly like I think back and question whether it was me, but obviously there is still a part of me that's there. That's the kind of kernel of yourself. But um, yeah, like my little sister, she's 18 now, so it's interesting to see how she's managing things right now, and I always try and support her whenever things are difficult. She's doing her A levels, and yeah, I wouldn't want anyone to go through what I went through, let alone my sister. So yeah, um, I just try to play that role just to make it sort of fun and let her express herself in her own way.
mm, I think it's really hard. Just being on social media is really hard in today's society, yeah, however many years, and especially kids growing up in today's society with it as well. Um, And I think there's so much access to it, and there's so many different platforms, and there's so many different ways that, you can learn how to have a healthy relationship, but it's not easy. And, you said you wish that you had the maturity back then, but you couldn't because that's who you were and that's the
Yeah,
age you were. And there are, I'm sure everyone on this planet can look back at a time in their life and say, I wish I X, Y, Z. But, they didn't, because at the time they didn't know how to. Getting
yeah,
through those things is what they can then look back in hindsight. Hindsight is a beautiful thing, as everyone says, but it can be tough when you look back and you're like, I wish I knew.
yeah, yeah. That's where there's also like a chance as well. Like you're kind of like, oh, the chances are that didn't happen, or what? Yeah, you're kind of just thinking what if. But yeah, it was a life changing moment, and even though you're a different person now, you wouldn't be the same if it wasn't for that time when you were a different person. So yeah, there's all kinds of thinking around it. Um, but yeah, I mean, my way of sort of rehabilitating was going to university and basically starting a new life. And obviously, that is quite a traditional platform to really sort of make a dramatic change. So I was very lucky. I made a pretty solid group of friends, and um, they respect my differences at a practical level. And yeah, I'm a lot happier. So it's got me to now. But yeah, and it's whenever I reflect, I always think about it differently whenever someone asks me. On different interviews, I'd always say it differently. So it's quite interesting how certain questions will make you think in hindsight in a different way and sort of make you consider different aspects because it's very complex.
Well, like you said earlier, we were talking about things being linear. Healing isn't linear, rehab isn't linear, recovery isn't linear, nothing really is linear. And I think that as you move through life and as you adapt and as you reprogram yourself and recreate yourself and whatever it is that you're going through in life, you can think about things in one way, but literally a week later or a day later, somebody can ask you something in a different way about said time, and you can just completely change the narrative. So it's a constant evolution of healing, of doing it yourself, and of being this person that you want to be, however you want to be it. Um, but you said you went to university, and what kind of happened then when you went to university? Because obviously you said you met people and they obviously understand what you're doing, but how was it able, you wanted to start again. How was starting again for you?
A lot of it was an accident. A lot of it was me still being very secretive and regarded in my massive halls of residence as the mysterious one. Why doesn't he have a phone? There was a lot of questions, a lot of this and that. It was, it wasn't so smooth, but once they kind of knew my personality and lived with me, it was kind of like a bond that couldn't really be undermined by my lack of online connection and practical stuff. So, literally living under the same roof as a lot of people. I mean, it was overwhelming coming from, having nothing to meeting more people in my life than I ever have. But after some time, you just sort of interact with people and you just gain respect for each other. You have that emotional bond from that kind of joint experience of going through freshers at university, and then the rest just sort of worked itself out. And yeah, I mean, eventually, after constant questions from my parents about, why aren't you answering your phone and stuff, um, I did open out and then receive professional help. And that was kind of like just after lockdown. So that was where like things started to sort of really turn around at a more sustainable level. Yeah.
I think getting professional health can be, getting professional help can be incredibly life-changing. Not everybody agrees with it, and not everybody can work with it. But I think if you can get it and you get the right person to speak to, then I think it can be life-changing.
Yeah. A lot of things, I suppose another like debate is around like medication, like prescribing pills and stuff as well. That's another aspect where people have different sort of takes on. I think I was kind of just like at this point, just try anything. Like it was a long lockdown. I was living with my friends, but I was still willing just to like go and try anything because that transition to adulthood, there was all kinds of abstract pressures where I was thinking it's probably like time to start like doing things that make me uncomfortable, like using a mobile phone again. But just sort of like I was ready to battle through it and summon the willpower to go through it and have resilience. Yeah, but it definitely gave me my voice back, and yeah, definitely gave me back like an identity that worked well with anyone. It wasn't just sort of I'm a different person around different people. It let me say, I am this guy who's offline. I'm the guy about the phone. Yeah, I'll just own it. Like I didn't like it at first because I was ashamed of it. But then people started complimenting it, and I was at first like really sort of bewildered by it. I was just like, really? Is it cool to like not have a phone? Like, I don't understand this. Like it's literally like the only thing I can't do. um, but then after a while, I was just like, okay, well, I'm just gonna like knock on doors and be really confident. They know it's me. They know I'm the guy who knocks. So knocking on friends' doors, it sort of gave people nostalgia of times when they were younger, when people were knocking, like, oh, can you come out and play, sort of thing. Like, so you just sort of like own the peculiarity and just try and have fun with it.
Yeah. Instead of just texting your mate, I'm outside. You
Yes,
literally go and knock on the door. Um,
yeah, yeah,
but it's interesting because I think a lot of people, you said that they complimented you about it. I think a lot of people wish that they weren't on social media. You
they
hear
do.
Yeah, no, I know a lot of people do, and I think there are a lot more people these days that aren't on certain platforms, and I think, and it's funny because a lot of the times when people do say that, they'll go, "Oh, I'm that person that's not on social media," but it's becoming more of a thing, and I think that almost
Yeah.
normalizing that as well, normalizing that if you don't want to be on a social media platform, you don't have to be, and I promise you, you're not going to miss out. You might miss hearing about your friends engagement maybe, but if it's your close friend or it's your family, you're going to find out anyway. So
Yeah, that was
it,
actually one of my close friends' sort of reasoning for deleting Instagram, to be honest, and he's happier for it. Yeah, it is interesting how there's kind of like after reflection that sort of excitement and must-have element has diminished a little bit. Um, yeah, but I have a lot of people they express like a wish, but then there's always one thing that gets them back to whatever they're doing. It's a difficult dilemma to handle. Yeah,
Yeah, 100%. And I think everyone gets triggered by different things. And I think you said earlier, even if you get into a confident, comfortable, complacent place where you're like, okay, I got this now, I'm going to try that thing again. Look, some people can. They can try whatever it is again. And they've got to a place where they can do whatever it is. But some people can't. And I think that's also okay because you've learned, you or the people that can't, it doesn't make you a failure. It doesn't mean you're not healing. It doesn't mean you're 10 steps behind. It just means that
no.
that's you and you can't do that thing. It doesn't matter. Don't force yourself, even if you get into a good place, don't force yourself to, dip your toe in and think, oh, I might try it again if you know it's not good for you. And like I said, talking to you, but talking to anyone here that's listening, if you know something isn't good for you and you've stopped it or you're trying to stop it, you don't have to go back to it because of peer pressure or because you think you should try it again. If you know it triggers you, if you know it makes you feel certain ways and it's just not helping and you're not getting through that, you know what? Sometimes those triggers, you don't need to fix them. You can just learn to be, okay, it's here. I'm going to feel it. But you know what? I can't do it. I can't. So you know what? I'm going to stop and I'm going to do it a different way.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting how where this technology has been so fast now, attitudes are starting to sort of change between different people as well. And yeah, it's really helped me. Besides writing and releasing my book, I think the most cathartic element was hearing other people sort of express their opinions and feelings about it, because then it kind of has like a unity of discussion and collectively, like me and not just younger people, but anyone, just sort of be like, this is an emotional reality that we all share in some way, because this technology has spread everywhere, all over the globe. Like it's ubiquitous, and yeah, like I think now, like when when people are sort of seeking advice on how to sort of improve their relationship with digital media, um, it's really important to take like a person-centered approach and be like, what are the substantial ends you get from this? Like, um, I'm using Zoom today for the fourth time in my life to talk to you because I feel it's a substantial end, and that kind of minimalism is quite important to sort of think about if you want to cut down, but you're not like immediately seeing any happiness from that. You got to sort of tell yourself that it is like a gradual thing that you've got to work on, and it is that experience that gives you, some quite valuable insights.
I was actually going to mention as well, because people probably might be sitting here thinking, but he's not on online, but he's doing an interview. How? They
Yeah,
might. I no, I was going to obviously mention it, and they're going to be
yeah,
thinking,
no, of course.
how is he doing that? But like you said, you're not even on your own device, are you?
No, no. Yeah, it took me a little while to figure this one out. Yeah, obviously we tried this a week and a half ago, and the audio
Yes.
somehow wasn't working for reasons only nothing in the universe will tell us about. So, yeah, like um, a lot of it is like secondhand if I'm engaging in online activity. Again, it's like an extreme level minimalism, and it just shows that um, the world is full of contradictions. So, it's about how we sort of how we sort of deal with that. Yeah,
No, 100%. The world is full of contradictions. And Before we get onto your book, I do wanna ask you then, because you did just touch upon getting support and help earlier. Do you
Yeah,
think that getting that help, was it with a therapist?
yeah. It was cognitive behavioral therapy and then also a clinical psychiatrist. So it was kind of like a double bill, but in the same practice. Yeah,
And do you feel that that helped you?
yeah, it did. I um After doing it for a set amount of time, I it did still feel a bit incomplete. I was trying other things like hypnotherapy. I was just kind of like it got a bit experimental because talking to someone who with that level of experience was great, but there was just certain nuances that I just didn't feel they were really getting at. And um, it was kind of like an education thing as well. Like it was almost like I need to remember some of these concepts they're suggesting that are really practical and useful, and be like, actually, this is like a tool that I can use for myself. Like, um, it was like, yeah, it was complicated, but it was very good. It was a very good booster. After a while, I did notice differences and just interactions of people, and it was in that sort of semi-lockdown phase where obviously quite a bit of social anxiety had built up for many reasons, and for the time, it was just really crucial for me. I was doing my masters, so um, yeah, like I had to sort of be able to connect to my own way and find my voice and find my feet.
Yeah, well, that's it, isn't it? It's finding who you are as a person, you know, not on the online world, offline. It's finding who you are in yourself as a human being, a living, breathing, physical person, rather than a virtual being. Because I think,
Yeah, very important for everyone to remember. Yeah,
yeah, because I think people have online personalities, virtual personalities, and physical human, actual face to face personalities, and I think that's also something that we're seeing more and more and more of that. That, and it's something that people need to not need, but people can get a lot of confidence from social media, but I think it's getting confidence in who you are without the social media. It's getting confidence in the person you are and the person you're becoming offline. And I know a lot of people get their, said confidence online. But, if all of that was taken away for whatever the reasons were, it's becoming the person you're meant to be or who you want to be physically as a human being today.
yeah. Actually, there's a book by an Irish psychologist called Mary Akins. She talks about like a fourth self. Like there's three selves throughout history, like philosophy and stuff. But there's the cyberspace has created another self that we're kind of like working on, and I found that really sort of yeah, really applicable. I thought that was right. Yeah, there is like another like self that found there. But obviously, there's massive parts of the offline experience, however advanced the online experience gets, that is um, authentic to that. It's going to be on its own. Like there's spontaneous discovery that happens in the real world that can never happen in the online world, no matter how curated it is to our interests. There's just certain interactions that are so life affirming that can't be made on there, and um, those things cannot be undermined and forgotten about.
Mhm. Human interaction is still one of the most beautiful things out there. Like that's it is. The connections and the interactions face to face with human beings. I know this is virtual. I know this is virtual, but it's
Yeah,
close. It's close to
yeah,
face
yeah,
to face. But actually being away from the virtual world when you can be, and just being around, even if it's one other human being, that interaction is so important.
yeah, yeah. I mean, like humans have been around for thousands of years, and we're evolutionary sort of wired to have that sort of social impulse as animals. You know, like we kind of just need other people. And after lockdown, there was just a big demand for like going to public events, like and people were like finding a new spring of life. Like, you know, I miss being around people. It's not just about doing your pub quiz once a week on Zoom. Like, there's things that people miss, and yeah, in all kinds of spheres and avenues. Yeah, so it's been such a fast change in all this technology that there's just some things that us mere mortals can't really keep up with in terms of like evolutionary psychology. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, we can't be too hard on ourselves when things are looking rough on the online side.
No, we can't be. We have to, everybody on this planet needs to be kinder to themselves. In whatever way, shape, or form. I know everyone needs to be a little bit kinder when they can be. And I do remember those pub quizzes, by the way, or those weekly Zoom quizzes. I remember them.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
My housemates took part, but sadly I couldn't. Yeah,
so I want to talk about your book because you have got a
sure.
book out and it's called Against the Current. And I want to know a little bit more about the book and about why why you wrote it. And then also if people want to find it where they can.
Yeah. So I'll start off with when I wrote it and why. It was um, December. I always get the year wrong. 2021. Yeah, yeah, 2021. And it was 3 months after finishing my masters. I was living in my family home. I was really struggling to sort of overcome that kind of like objectively difficult period of what you're doing after uni. And um, yeah, I had another setback, a pretty fierce one. A lot of my friends had moved out of. I'm from Brighton. I went to uni in Brighton as well, so a lot of my friends moved away from Brighton and were connecting online, etc. So it was kind of like a bit of a whirlwind in my mind as to how to stay connected on that front. So I was just having a bit of a meltdown one evening to my mum and my sister, and then they were suggesting to me to write about it, and I was like, actually, yeah, like I never planned before that evening to take my writing further in that field. Like I studied history, but I wasn't planning on writing more about um, anything. So the next morning, I got up and I don't remember what the first thing is, what I wrote, but it definitely wasn't a title idea or an introduction. I just wrote something about the experience, like how do I feel about it now? Um, and eventually, I handwrote the book on pen and paper. So it was old school, and then eventually, I was kind of like talking to people about it in the sort of 6 month period that I was writing the first draft and getting a lot of support and enthusiasm. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna try and type this up. I'm gonna um, rob my dad's laptop for a few months and and write it and um, try and get it published anyway. And I did, and it was I had to sort of do it a bit differently, but I had like a crowdfunder, which I acted as like a pre-order system, and it got a fair bit of attention. So I was like, okay, so the book came out, and I sort of thought of myself that I'm 25 now. I was 23 when I started writing it, and there's not many authors of that kind of age. So I was like, okay, I'm writing this now, but it's important to write it now because the sort of experience of being a teenager going through that vast technological advancement and growth is kind of part of the story. I wanted to not write it like um, a psychologist in middle age who had very big analytic concepts, but I wanted to put a young person's voice into it. There was things about the experience that were uncovered by literature. For something so big and transformative, I thought I had something original to give. So that kind of gave me the energy to really sort of put something in my own words. And it was in memoir form. It was about my life from the ages of 13 right up until the evening before I actually began to start to write it. So um, I just went through part one using the technology, getting burnt by it, and then after that trying to work out the rest and come over all the challenges of majority staying offline. Um, yeah, so um, I published it last year in the summer. Yeah, and since then, yeah, I've been writing another, so it's made me want to write more about similar topic, but slightly different course. Make it a different sort of story, um, and write it in a way that's both raw and honest, but also um, trying to be relatable and empathetic to quite a big experience for a lot of young people who I know have struggled with managing their time and mental health with this technology. Um, so I really wanted to dedicate it to them and hopefully help some people. I've been to a few local schools and that's been really constructive, really great. So definitely continue doing things along those lines. Yeah.
That's super exciting that, well, first of all, you've got one out, but the fact that you've got another one, in the pipeline. And I think that's, yeah, it's really impressive. So, congratulations to you for being 25 and having a book
Thank you.
out. Like
Yeah.
that's very cool. It is.
Thank you.
No, it
Yeah.
really, really, really is. And you should be so proud of yourself to have that, to know that you have a book out there for anyone and everyone to read.
Yeah, it's kind of like that was like the sort of ultimate solution, if you like. That was like the best thing I could do. And it's like it's really nice because it wouldn't be a thing. It wouldn't be like a book out there in the world if it wasn't for everything I've been through. It really is a memoir of that kind that just tries to go to like absolute honesty about even the darkest of places and all the sort of thoughts that were drifting through my mind at the time, which was another reason why to write it so quickly. Because I was like, as much as memory can last forever, there was just like details that I thought I've got to get this down now, like because these things all amount up to something quite important to say. Um, yeah.
So if anyone wants to find the book, where can they?
So Catch 22 is available online. uh, like you can literally, I mean, my publisher literally put it everywhere, like every sort of major bookseller you can think of across the world. So that's quite nice. I didn't have to do that side of things, which is good. So yeah, like unfortunately, there is a few books called Against the Current. So you'll have to type in my name, Luke Young, as well to find it online. But I've also had some articles released on the topic as well, so it kind of gives you a bit of an introduction to what I sort of go on about, which is nice. So um, yeah, like I mean, if anyone listening is local to Brighton or Sussex, Kemp Town Bookshop have stocked it, and also my favourite cafe to write in, Pelicano Coffee, so on Sydney Street. So it's in there as well if you want to get it offline.
And if anyone wants to meet the author themselves.
Yeah, I'll be around. I'll probably be upstairs like hiding. It's a very busy cafe, but I like being in there for the hubbub. It's kind of my real life social media being on that street. So that's where I sort of connect to people when I need it. Um, yeah.
Nice. And then before we wrap up, I want to ask you one more question, which is, what advice would you give to somebody that they're in the I don't have a good relationship with social media and they don't really know what to do, but it's really, really, really getting to them. And obviously there's so many different things they can do. What would you say to them, if they want to go and open up, a platform, or they want to, they use it as an escapism, because a lot of people use it as escapism, but they don't want to use it as escapism. What would you say to somebody?
It is really hard to strip it back to what you genuinely need from it, because partially because of a lot of its design and the way it will just constantly give you more and more and really get to know what you're interested in like bite-sized format. um so you really have to sort of acknowledge that it is touching on your deeper feelings and it is avowedly social, whether you like it or not. And because of that, and because of that kind of deeper part of you that it touches on, for something that's actually quite immediate and superficial in a lot of ways, you really got to find a way to sort of separate it and kind of come across with like your own sort of little policies that sort of work and give you a structure, like, oh, I've got an office hours at this time of the week, um or perhaps like deleting an app and only being able to go on something like Instagram by going on your search engine. You basically got to make it less convenient if you want it to grab you less. And if there is an option to do things offline, which is increasingly difficult, there's a lot of like QR codes out there and discounts and offers that you can't get unless you're got a smartphone that's hooked online. I still struggle with certain things today, like solidarity there. Like, it's very tough to find the offline way of doing things. Like, a lot of people don't have a printer. If you want to go to a gig, you have to have an e-ticket. It is very hard to uh, leave your phone at home for an evening or a day. And you might feel very insecure by doing that, and the people who care about you will as well. So there's just so much deeper stuff that you have to sort of handle and really work to find a path in managing if you just want to improve your own mental well-being. Um, any cost benefit analysis doesn't really apply too well, I personally think. So um, taking it little by little, cold turkey will be difficult and it will make you feel very strange. I know that for a fact. It might take months to get over that, but um, it's, yeah, maybe you just want to have it for work. Like, a lot of people manage that because you're kind of like patterning it to your work timetable. So it's actually something that's put on you from like an external force. Um, Steve Jobs famously didn't let his kids have an iPad because, well, I mean, he knows it better than anything. He won't get high on his own supply. Like, you got to know that it is not just um, your thing. There is actually a lot of interactive elements from both designers and people in your life that will keep you on there. So um, you got to find your way to sort of have your own power base and like managing your relationship with technology. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Taking up hobbies is also good. I mean, filling your time with activities, even when you're a bit tired, you just want to be sat watching Netflix for a few hours. Like, filling like even like a handheld hobby is a really good idea. Just something to really preoccupy your mind. Um, there are a lot of sort of mental dispositions and one key example, ADHD, that makes it very difficult not to have that constant activity around you. So um, there's a kind of like term by another psychologist, Carl Newport, who basically said that it is about like the architecture around you and the environment that triggers certain behaviors. When you go home, you think, I want to sit here and I want to watch this. You kind of just have to sort of change your environment, and then certain changes in you will take place, because we're very like reciprocal in that way. So I think it is just important to think like, where can I go right now that won't necessarily encourage me to go on Instagram all the time? Like, is there like a really fun place with lots going on that I can just sit and chill out in? Like, yeah, you got to use your initiative big time. You got to be quite creative. If it was easy, then a lot more people would have done it. So, challenge accepted. Like, it will take some time. Like, just respect that fact, I think.
yeah, I agree with you. And I think even if that means don't check certain things on your phone or whatever it is until 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. Don't make it be the first thing that you do the moment you wake
Yeah,
up. You know,
yeah. Another thing is not having your phone by your bedside. Yeah, like I know people have their alarms on it and etc. But I mean, if you put your alarm away from your bedside, it makes you get out of bed in the morning. So you want to, yeah, you kind of just need to be a bit like honest with yourself, and um, this is where like the drug analogy becomes convenient again, because you can say all sorts and think all sorts. When that moment comes, that flat moment where you just want that fix to be all right, I need to see this. My friend's been talking about this. Your impulse to do it without thinking, like, it's such a powerful piece of kit, and it's so small that you can use it anywhere. You can use it at work without your boss looking. Um, like, yeah, it's challenging. Um, just got to be respectful of the challenge and not like ever belittle it, and not ever like give anyone a difficult time for not answering back messages as well. Be a little bit more sympathetic on the other side, where it's never personal. Really, like um, a lot of the time, like some emails I've just missed just because it's gone into my junk. um, there's a lot of like chance element in it. It's as much as your online screen is created to you, there is a lot of things about it that you don't actually control. So don't bother worrying about things that you don't control. Yeah, there's a long list of tips. It's probably going to be a whole book someday, like hopefully something that actually speaks to younger people who are really struggling with this. Yeah, because a lot of the time it just doesn't quite hit the spot. Um,
Well, someday there's going to be a book. You can be the author.
yeah, maybe. Yeah,
Yeah. But it is, there's so many different ways, there's so many different things, there's so many different habits and coping mechanisms. And I think, like you said, it's having patience, it's being kind to yourself, and but also it's also being strong with yourself as well, whether it's that
yeah,
impulsive, I want to check this thing, or I want to go on this thing, or, oh, it's 11 o'clock in the evening, but I've set a curfew to not open social media platforms past 10:30, but
yeah.
don't check it. Just, if you
I
want to do
literally, yeah, I
something.
found myself saying to a family member the other day that there is always something important to do online. So you
Yeah.
kind of got to make a sacrifice. You kind of got to say, yeah, like this is really exciting. My mates are talking about it and they're really bonding over it. But today, I really just shouldn't. And you kind of got to accept that and be like, yeah, there is like an inch of social pain that comes from missing out. Like FOMO is a real thing, but um, sometimes it's just the price you have to pay for like longer term health. Mental health is more valuable than one day's FOMO. That's one thing you can be certain of.
I think the fear of missing out is everyone goes through it in different respects. But I think that, like you just said, it's okay to miss out on a few things for, short-term things for long,
Yeah, you got
like
to privately
anything,
accept it,
short-term for
definitely.
long-term. Hmm.
Sorry, you're lagging a bit there. What?
That's okay. No, I said that it's like with anything, it's short-term for long-term.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Which, when you're in a bad mood or you're tired, is very, very hard to stick to. So again, it's just really appreciating the scale of the challenge and being honest about it, because um, it is difficult for you or anyone else to stay offline for a day, and that's just the reality. Like we have to sort of accept. Um, but yeah, definitely the kind of like social pain, social satisfaction element. Definitely don't read into it too much, otherwise that will make you check your phone more than you want to.
Yeah. You need to be, you need to, I think the message is you need to be okay with who you are offline. And that's the first step.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
So is there anything else that you want to mention today?
Um, we've covered a wide amount of stuff. Yeah, I think that's been good. Yeah,
Oh.
very good questions. Yeah,
Well, thank you very much for joining me. It's a pleasure
no
to meet
worries. Thank you
you.
for having me. Yeah.
Social media, our phones, and modern technology play a huge role in who we are and our everyday life. But so does being present, being in the moment, and being who we truly authentically are behind the screens. Everything you see online isn't necessarily real. So be kind to yourself and be true to yourself. And if you want to compare yourself and compete with anybody, then compare and compete with yourself of yesterday. You are the greatest project you will ever get to work on. Take your time, create magic. So until next time, remember, you have the power inside you. We all do. You have the power to get back up.